No one in the galaxy expected a poor human to change the future of two civilizations in a single night. Least of all her. Kylera Voss woke up to silence that felt wrong. The room was too still. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that only existed in places where money erased chaos. Light filtered through crystal-paneled windows, bending softly around floating holodrapes. This was her private sky suite, 50 floors above the capital world of Aurelian Prime. A place owned by her family since before most star systems had learned faster-than-light travel. Kylera was the only heir to the Voss Combine, an alien megacorporation that controlled shipping lanes, planetary infrastructure, and half the banking networks in this sector of the galaxy. She was never supposed to wake up confused. She pushed herself upright, and froze. Her body felt different. Heavy. Warm. A strange pulse echoed low in her abdomen, unfamiliar and impossible. Her breathing became shallow as memory crashed back in fragments. Laughter, dim lights, human music that used real instruments instead of algorithms, and a man with tired eyes and a crooked smile who hadn't once asked who she was. Her wrist console chimed softly. Medical alert. Biological anomaly detected. Kylera stared at the words, her pale gold skin going cold. No, she whispered. That wasn't possible. Humans and Aurelians were genetically incompatible. That fact was written into every medical archive, every interspecies treaty, every school database. It was considered absolute science. Her hands trembled as she activated a full scan. The hologram appeared above her palm. There was no mistaking it. Life. A small, growing presence inside her. Half hers. Half human. Across the city, in a district the elite pretended did not exist, Elias Rowe was already awake. He hadn't slept much anyway. Elias lived in the underground, where towers leaned like tired giants and power flickered when the grid decided humans could wait. His apartment was a single room above a repair shop, filled with spare parts, old tools, and a window that looked out over rusted sky rails. He ran a hand through his dark hair and sighed. Bad idea, he muttered to himself for the 100th time. He wasn't stupid. He knew better than to get involved with off-world elites. Especially not alien ones. Especially not someone who carried herself like she'd never lost a fight in her life. But when he'd seen Kylera that night, alone, furious, and trying desperately to disappear into a place that didn't want her, he hadn't seen an alien billionaire's heir. He'd seen a person drowning. And humans had always been good at jumping into deep water. The night market on Aurelian Prime was one of the few places where species mixed without permission. No family crests. No security drones hovering overhead. Just noise, heat, and life. Elias had been there repairing a sound generator for a street band when he noticed her. She stood out immediately. Not because she was alien, plenty of aliens visited the underground, but because she looked lost in a way money couldn't fix. Someone had followed her. Elias saw it before she did. He'd stepped in without thinking. That was the human problem, really. Thinking came after action. Always had. 3 hired enforcers. Clean gear. Corporate muscle. Kylera never even screamed. Elias remembered the sound of his own heartbeat as he moved. He remembered pain, the sharp crack of a stunned baton grazing his ribs, the taste of blood. He remembered how surprised the enforcers looked when a poor human refused to stay down. Humans didn't win by being stronger. They won by being stubborn. By the time local patrols arrived, the enforcers were gone, and Elias was bleeding onto the pavement. Kylera had knelt beside him, her hands glowing faintly as she stabilized his injuries with tech far beyond anything he'd ever seen. You didn't have to do that, she'd said quietly. He'd laughed. Yeah. But I did. They'd talked after. Shared cheap food. Walked under broken lights while the city hummed around them. For once, Kylera hadn't been an heir. For once, Elias hadn't been invisible. One night. That was all it was supposed to be. Now, hours later, Kylera sat in a medical chamber surrounded by doctors who wouldn't meet her eyes. This scan is accurate, one finally said. The fetus is viable. Adaptive. Human genetic traits are stabilizing the hybridization. Her mother would find out soon. And when the Voss Combine discovered that its perfect heir carried a child by a human laborer from the Undercrown, there would be consequences. Severe ones. Kylera dismissed the doctors and stood alone, staring out at the city. For the first time in her life, she wasn't thinking like a corporate successor. She was thinking like a mother. Far below, Elias finished sealing a reactor panel and wiped his hands clean. He felt it then, a strange, heavy certainty in his chest. Like the universe had nudged him and said, "You're not done." Humans had always been underestimated. Too emotional. Too chaotic. Too fragile. The galaxy liked to forget one thing. Humans adapted. And soon, the galaxy would learn just how dangerous that could be. By the time Kylera returned to her sky suite, the Voss Combine was already hunting for the truth. Not with police. Not with questions. With algorithms, silent drones, and people who smiled while sharpening knives. Her wrist console flashed with new messages. Meeting requests. Urgent family consultation. Medical audit verification. Security review. The Combine never said why. It didn't need to. Kylera stood in front of a mirror and watched her own reflection like it belonged to someone else. Her eyes, silver-ringed and usually calm, looked haunted. She placed a hand over her abdomen. A hybrid child. A living scandal. A future the galaxy insisted could not exist. She inhaled slowly, forcing her mind into order. Panic was a luxury. She had been trained since childhood to survive boardrooms the way soldiers survived battlefields. Step 1. Learn what the enemy knew. Step 2. Control the story before the story controlled her. Kylera activated a secure channel on her console and spoke one name. Dr. Senv. A moment later, a face appeared, an older Aurelian physician with tired eyes and a careful voice. He'd served the Voss family for decades. "You requested a private connection," he said. "I need truth," Kylera replied. "How long until the Combine confirms my condition?" His gaze shifted away for half a second, long enough to answer the question without words. "You already know," he said quietly. "They have surveillance systems embedded in most elite medical devices. Your scan pinged a restricted pattern." Kylera's jaw tightened. "So they know." "They suspect," the doctor corrected. "Suspicion becomes certainty when they have a name attached to it. If they can identify the human." Kylera ended the call. Her pulse thudded hard. The Combine didn't fear scandal because of morality. It feared scandal because scandal reduced profit. If the board believed her pregnancy threatened the company, they would remove the threat. And they would call it risk management. The same hour, in the Undercrown, Elias Rowe noticed he was being followed. It wasn't obvious at first. He'd learned long ago how to ignore stares. Humans in the Undercrown were watched all the time, by patrol drones, by debt collectors, by smugglers looking for easy prey. But this was different. This watcher moved like a trained professional. No jitter. No impatience. Quiet shoes. Clean coat. The kind of person who didn't belong in a district that smelled of oil and burnt metal. Elias kept walking like he hadn't noticed. He turned into a crowded alley market, passing stalls selling recycled circuit boards and steaming food bowls. He slipped behind a noise generator stall, ducked into a maintenance corridor, and climbed a ladder that led to a rooftop path. The watcher followed. Okay, Elias thought. So it's real. He didn't run. Running made you look guilty. Instead, he let the watcher get close. Then Elias stepped into a shadow and waited. The figure appeared on the rooftop, scanning. Elias moved fast, one hand clamped around the person's wrist, twisting just enough to make them gasp, while his other hand pressed a small tool against their throat. Not a weapon. A soldering spike. But sharp enough. "Don't move," Elias said calmly. "Who are you?" The figure froze. A short pause. Then a smooth voice answered. "Someone trying to keep you alive." Elias narrowed his eyes. "Funny. People who want me alive usually don't stalk me." The figure slowly raised their free hand. "Look behind you." Elias didn't. That was how people died. But he did glance sideways. A faint red dot trembled on the wall beside his shoulder. A targeting laser. His blood turned cold. "There's a second team," the figure said, breathing carefully. "They were going to drop you right here and call it street violence." Elias swallowed once. "Who sent them?" "The Voss Combine," the figure answered. "Or someone inside it." Elias's mind snapped through possibilities. Chimera. The night. The enforcers. The scan. He eased his grip slightly but kept the spike steady. "Why warn me?" "Because you're the only piece they need," the figure said. "Without you, the story becomes a medical anomaly. With you, it becomes a crime they can punish." Elias stared at the stranger's face, trying to memorize every detail. "What do you want?" he asked. The stranger lowered their eyes briefly, as if choosing words. "I want you to disappear," they said. "Right now." Elias almost laughed. "Yeah. And where do I go? I'm a mechanic with a half-broken toolset and a rent clock. I can't disappear." The stranger's expression tightened. Humans always say that. Then they do it anyway. A sound echoed from below, soft but metallic. Boots on the ladder. The second team was climbing. The stranger's eyes widened. "They are here." Elias didn't hesitate. He shoved the stranger toward the rooftop door. "Move." They sprinted across the roof. Elias grabbed a loose cable, yanked it free, and slammed the rooftop access panel shut behind them. The ladder hatch rattled as someone hit it from below. Elias's mind worked fast, not panicked, focused. He wasn't stronger than corporate killers. But he didn't have to be. He ran to a rooftop power junction box, ripped it open, and pulled a thick grounding wire loose. He jammed a tool into the circuit and sparked a short surge. The lights across 3 rooftops went out. Darkness dropped like a curtain. The hatch burst open. 2 shapes climbed out, both wearing sleek stealth armor designed for clean jobs. They scanned with night optics. Elias held his breath behind an air vent, pressed flat against the roof. The stranger crouched beside him, whispering, "You just blacked out half the block." Elias whispered back, "It's the undercrown. Half the block is always blacked out." One assassin stepped forward, weapon raised. Elias watched the movement of their boots, their weight distribution, their timing. Then he threw a metal bolt across the rooftop, clang, and the assassins turned instantly toward the sound. Elias launched himself forward and slammed into the first one's knee, driving it sideways. Armor didn't protect joints. The assassin collapsed with a grunt. The second assassin spun, firing. The shot missed. Hit a water tank. Steam exploded upward. Elias grabbed a pipe and swung, not at the assassin's helmet, but at the weapon. The gun flew out of the assassin's hand and skidded into the darkness. The stranger moved, fast and clean, landing a strike behind the assassin's ear. The assassin dropped. Elias stood breathing hard, sweat in his eyes. He stared down at the 2 armored bodies and felt his stomach twist. "These aren't street thugs," he said. "No," the stranger agreed. "They're a message." A sound rose in the distance. Drones. Many drones. The stranger grabbed Elias's sleeve. "We have less than 2 minutes. Come with me." Elias hesitated for a single heartbeat. Then he nodded. He didn't know why he trusted this stranger. Maybe because the stranger had been honest. Or maybe because deep inside, Elias already knew this wasn't about him anymore. Across the city, Chimera sat in a silent transport capsule heading toward Voss Tower, the headquarters of her family's empire. She wore a simple dark suit, no jewels, no crest. She didn't want to look like royalty today. She wanted to look like someone ready for war. Her mother had summoned her for an emergency board session. Chimera knew what that meant. The Combine had found something. Maybe not everything, but enough. The transport docked. Doors opened. A corridor of polished stone and glowing panels stretched ahead like a throat swallowing her whole. Chimera walked forward, head high. Inside the boardroom, 13 directors waited in a half-circle, their faces calm but hungry. At the center sat chairwoman Serapha Voss, Kylira's mother. Serapha's gaze pinned Kylira like a spear. "Daughter," she said smoothly, "we need to discuss an irregularity." Kylira felt the room tilt, just slightly. Then she saw it, a medical file projected in the air behind her mother. Her scan. Her proof. Serapha's voice stayed soft. "You will explain yourself. And you will tell us the name of the human involved." Kylira's mind raced, but she kept her face steady. In that moment, she realized something important. The board wasn't asking to understand. The board was asking to control. Kylira lifted her chin. "No," she said clearly. A murmur moved through the room like wind before a storm. Serapha's eyes narrowed. "No." Kylira's voice didn't shake. "If you want a name, you'll have to earn it." And far below, Elias Rowe was being led through a hidden tunnel network beneath the underground, toward a place where humans stored their secrets, their tools, and their worst plans. The stranger guiding him finally spoke again, voice low and urgent. "You don't understand what you just stepped into," they said. Elias wiped blood from his knuckles. "Yeah, I do." He looked up into the darkness ahead. "They think I'm a weak human. Poor. Easy to erase." His eyes hardened. "Let them." He smiled without humor. "Humans do our best work when people stop paying attention." The tunnel beneath the underground was older than the city itself. Elias felt it in the walls as he moved, layers of history pressed into stone and alloy. This wasn't corporate architecture. It wasn't elegant or efficient. It was human. Built in stages, repaired 100 times, reshaped by people who refused to leave when the city above decided they were disposable. The stranger led him through a heavy door marked with faded warning symbols. Inside, light bloomed. Not bright. Not polished. But alive. Men and women looked up from workbenches and screens. Humans of different ages and origins. Some wore old military jackets. Others wore grease-stained work clothes. A few had visible implants, salvaged, modified, imperfect. Every single one of them stopped when Elias entered. The stranger removed their hood. She was human too. Short hair, sharp eyes, and a thin scar running along her jaw. "My name is Mara Chen," she said. "Former logistics officer. Human Defense Corps." A few heads nodded. Others relaxed slightly. Elias swallowed. "Why am I here?" "Because you touched the Voss Combine without permission," Mara said. "And because you survived." Elias let out a short breath. "That wasn't the plan." "It never is," she replied. "Sit." He did. A large display activated on the far wall, showing layered maps of Aurelian Prime. Trade routes. Power grids. Surveillance zones. Humans leaned closer. "The Combine doesn't just run shipping," Mara continued. "They run narrative. They decide which species matter, which voices are heard, and which disappear quietly." She turned and looked straight at Elias. "They are afraid of you." Elias almost laughed. "I'm a repair tech." "You're a symbol," she corrected. "And humans understand symbols better than anyone." Across the city, Kylira stood alone in a private chamber attached to the boardroom. Her mother had dismissed the directors for consultation, but Kylira knew the truth. The board was watching, recording, measuring. Serapha Voss folded her hands calmly. "You're risking everything," she said. "Your position. Your future. Your safety." Kylira met her gaze. "You taught me that leverage matters more than fear." Serapha's eyes flickered, just slightly. "Then you know you have none." Kylira inhaled. "You're wrong." She activated her wrist console and projected a data stream into the air. Human market growth models. Cultural influence metrics. Sentiment analysis. Serapha's expression shifted, not to anger, but to focus. Kylira continued. "Humans don't resist us because they hate aliens. They resist us because we treat them like resources. Replaceable labor." Serapha said nothing. My child, Kylera said softly, changes that. Serapha's gaze sharpened. You will not turn this into sentiment. I'm turning it into strategy, Kylera replied. The galaxy believes humans are weak because they lack centralized power. That belief is wrong. She stepped closer. Humans don't unite under banners. They unite under ideas. Serapha's silence stretched. Then she asked, very quietly, who is he? Kylera didn't answer. In the tunnel hub, Mara's voice hardened. The Combine will try to erase you, she told Elias. If that fails, they'll try to turn you into a criminal. If that fails, they'll try to turn you into a monster. Elias rubbed his hands together slowly. They already tried murder. Yes, Mara said. That was phase 1. Elias looked around the room. So what is this place? A man with grey hair spoke up. This is where humans stop asking for permission. Mara nodded. We call it the Weave. Not a rebellion. Not a government. A network. Elias frowned. Networks get crushed. Only when they're visible, Mara replied. Humans learned a long time ago that the strongest structures don't look like structures at all. She tapped the display. We don't fight head-on. We reroute. We adapt. We flood systems with complexity. Elias felt something click in his mind. You're not planning to attack the Combine, he said. Mara smiled thinly. No. We're planning to let them attack themselves. Hours later, a human newsfeed flickered to life across thousands of unofficial channels. Not corporate. Not approved. Human-made. The first clip was simple. A still image of Elias Rowe, pulled from public cameras. No dramatic music. No shouting. Just text. This human saved an alien heir from corporate kidnappers. Then another clip. The Combine called it an accident. Another. Why was a poor human targeted with military-grade assassins? Questions spread faster than answers. Humans shared the feed. Modified it. Translated it. Turned it into art, debate, and argument. The Combine noticed too late. Serapha Voss watched the metrics spike in real time. Human engagement levels surged. Public sentiment fractured. Shut it down, a director demanded over secure link. Serapha raised a hand. No, she said calmly. The director stared. Matriarch. Serapha's eyes never left the data. If we suppress this, it becomes truth in their minds. If we allow it, we can guide it. Kylera watched her mother carefully. And what about Elias? She asked. Serapha finally turned to her daughter. What do humans do when they realize they've been underestimated? She asked. Kylera answered without hesitation. They get creative. Serapha's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Exactly. In the undercrown, Elias stared at the screen as his face appeared across multiple feeds. His chest tightened. They know who I am. Mara nodded. Yes. And you let it happen. Yes. Elias exhaled sharply. You used me. Mara met his gaze evenly. So did the Combine. The difference is, we're giving you a choice. Silence stretched. Then Elias nodded slowly. Okay, he said. What do you need me to do? Mara's eyes gleamed. Nothing heroic, she said. Just be human. Days later, Kylera stood at the window of her suite as public pressure mounted. Human representatives demanded inquiry. Neutral systems requested clarification. Independent analysts questioned the Combine's silence. For the first time in decades, the Voss Combine wasn't setting the narrative. It was reacting to it. Kylera placed a hand over her abdomen again. The child inside her stirred. A human-Aurelian hybrid. Proof that the galaxy's rules were incomplete. Across the city, Elias repaired a damaged transmitter while messages poured in. Support, threats, hope, anger. He read them all. Humans arguing. Humans organizing. Humans refusing to disappear. The galaxy had made one mistake too many. It had assumed humans were small. And humans had never stayed small for long. The first mistake the Voss Combine made was assuming the pressure would fade. It didn't. Human discussion didn't burn hot and fast like alien analysts predicted. It spread sideways. Into corners the Combine didn't monitor. Into jokes, art, underground broadcasts, and late-night conversations between workers who had never cared about corporate politics before. Because this time, the story involved one of their own. A poor human who hadn't asked for power. And an alien heir who refused to abandon him. Kylera watched the numbers climb from her private terminal. Not just view counts or message volume, but something far more dangerous to an empire. Trust. Human trust in each other was increasing. That was never supposed to happen. Inside Voss Tower, emergency meetings stacked on top of each other. Directors argued in circles, voices rising, confidence cracking. This is spiraling, one snapped. We must isolate the human. We already tried, another replied. It failed. Serapha Voss sat silently at the head of the table, fingers steepled, eyes sharp. Kylera studied her mother carefully. She saw calculation, but also something else. Memory. Old battles resurfacing. Mother, Kylera said finally, you taught me that control comes from understanding leverage. Elias is not leverage against humans. Serapha turned her gaze slowly. Then what is he? Kylera didn't hesitate. He is leverage for them. The room went still. You can't suppress this, Kylera continued. Every threat you make confirms their fears. Every denial feeds their curiosity. And what would you suggest? A director demanded bitterly. Kylera inhaled once. Transparency. Laughter broke out, sharp, disbelieving. Serapha raised one finger. Silence returned instantly. Explain, she said. Kylera straightened. You announce an independent inquiry into the assassination attempt. You publicly acknowledge Elias Rowe as a protected civilian. And you allow him to speak. That would legitimize him, a director hissed. Yes, Kylera said calmly. That's the point. Far below, in a reinforced sublevel of the undercrown, Elias stared at the message projected in front of him. Formal request for public statement. Voss Combine. He rubbed his face slowly. They're asking, he muttered. Not threatening. Mara crossed her arms. That means they're scared. Or clever, Elias replied. Mara studied him. You don't trust them. I don't trust anyone with that much power, Elias said. But I trust humans to notice when something feels wrong. Mara nodded. If you speak, the Combine loses control of the narrative. Elias leaned back in his chair. And if I don't? They paint you as unstable, dangerous, radicalized. Elias sighed. So either way, I'm on the stage. Yes, Mara said softly. But one way, you choose the words. Elias closed his eyes for a moment. He thought of Kylera, standing alone in a tower full of predators, carrying a child that shouldn't exist, risking everything because she refused to erase him. He opened his eyes. Set it up, he said. The broadcast went live across hundreds of independent human networks. No corporate Polish. No dramatic lighting. Just Elias, seated at a plain table, wearing simple clothes, hands resting where everyone could see them. He looked tired. That mattered. I'm not a hero, Elias began. I fix things for a living. Broken machines. Broken systems. Sometimes broken people. Millions watched. I didn't save Kylera because she was rich or powerful. I saved her because she was in trouble. Humans do that. Not always. Not perfectly. But often enough to matter. He paused. I didn't ask to be hunted. I didn't ask to be a symbol. But if being human means anything, it means we don't disappear just because someone richer wants us quiet. Human comment feeds exploded. Not with rage. With recognition. Inside Voss Tower, Serapha watched the broadcast in silence. Kylera stood beside her, heart pounding. "He's good," Serapha said quietly. Kylera blinked. "You sound surprised." "I'm not," Serapha replied. "I'm reminded." She turned to her daughter. "Do you know why the board fears humans?" Kylera shook her head. "Because humans don't need permission to belong," Serapha said. "They build community from scraps. Empires hate that." The next move came from the board. And it was a mistake. They leaked classified footage from Proxima conflict zones, edited, stripped of context, implying human instability, aggression, emotional volatility. The intention was clear. Paint humans as dangerous. What they didn't expect was the response. Human veterans stepped forward. Human medics. Human refugees. They didn't deny the footage. They explained it. They added context. Names. Faces. Stories. Humans didn't pretend they were perfect. They showed they were real. The galaxy watched as humans took control of a narrative designed to shame them, and turned it into proof of resilience. Markets reacted. Not with collapse. With shift. Neutral systems paused contracts. Independent traders favored human-led routes. Data showed rising demand for human-designed tech, flexible, modular, adaptable. The combine's dominance wavered. Serapha stood before the board one final time. "The situation has changed," she said. "We adapt, or we fracture." A director slammed a fist on the table. "You would side with them." Serapha's gaze hardened. "I would side with survival." She activated a projection. A joint initiative. Human-Aurelian partnerships. Shared governance models. Decentralized oversight. Kylera's breath caught. "You planned this," she whispered. Serapha didn't deny it. 30 years ago, I was told love was weakness. I believed it. That was my failure. She met Kylera's eyes. "I will not repeat it." Far below, Elias watched the market indicators shift. "Did we just win?" he asked Mara. Mara smiled faintly. "Humans don't win. We change the rules." Days later, Kylera stood at the edge of the undercrown, escorted not by guards, but by human volunteers. Elias waited for her in the open air. No hiding. No shadows. When they saw each other, neither spoke at first. Then Elias laughed softly. "You really turned an empire sideways." Kylera smiled. "You taught me how." She took his hand. Cameras flashed. Not hostile. Curious. Hopeful. Above them, the galaxy adjusted, slowly, reluctantly, to a truth it could no longer ignore. Humans were no longer beneath the system. They were inside it. Changing it. And the final consequences were yet to come. The galaxy did not change all at once. It never did. Change came in fractures, in quiet decisions, in moments where people chose differently than expected. And in the weeks after the broadcast, those moments multiplied faster than any empire could track. Kylera stood on the balcony of Voss Tower, feeling the slow rhythm of the city beneath her feet. For the first time, the tower no longer felt like a throne. It felt like a crossroads. Behind her, the boardroom was silent. The directors had argued themselves into exhaustion. Threats had failed. Suppression had failed. Control had slipped through their fingers like dust. Serapha Voss rose from her seat. "The vote is complete," she said. Kylera turned. The matriarch's posture was straight, but her expression was no longer carved from stone. It held something sharper than authority. Resolve. "The Voss Combine will formally recognize the Human-Aurelian Cooperative Charter," Serapha announced. "Effective immediately." A few directors protested weakly. Others stared at the table. Kylera felt her breath catch. "And," Serapha continued, "my daughter will assume joint oversight of the initiative, alongside a human representative." All eyes shifted. Kylera didn't look back at the board. She knew exactly who that representative would be. In the undercrown, Elias Rowe stared at the message 3 times before he believed it. Invitation to council, human representative seat. He laughed. A real laugh. The kind that came from disbelief. "You've got to be kidding me," he said. Mara leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "They don't know how humans work." Elias exhaled slowly. "Neither do we, half the time." "Still going to accept?" she asked. Elias looked around the room, the weave hub. Humans arguing, building, adapting. No single leader. No single voice. "I'm not representing humans," he said. "I'm representing a principle." Mara nodded. "That's very human of you." The first joint council session was chaos. Not violent. Not dramatic. Just messy. Humans questioned everything. Aurelians demanded structure. Translators struggled to keep up as ideas collided from different angles. And yet, progress happened. Because humans didn't wait for permission to speak. They told stories. Shared failures. Proposed systems that bent instead of breaking. They argued loudly, disagreed openly, and somehow still moved forward. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. This wasn't diplomacy as it had ever known it. It was collaboration born from friction. Kylera sat beside Elias during the sessions, her hand resting unconsciously over her abdomen. The medical projections now showed something extraordinary. The child wasn't just stable. It was thriving. Adaptive gene clusters activated in real time, responding to both human and Aurelian markers. A living bridge, not engineered, not designed, but chosen. "Your child is rewriting medical theory," one scientist admitted during a closed briefing. Kylera smiled faintly. "They're just being themselves." News spread fast. Not as scandal this time. As possibility. Human colonies requested joint governance trials. Alien systems asked for cultural exchange programs. Trade routes once locked by monopolies opened to smaller, flexible human-led cooperatives. The galaxy's largest empires hesitated. And that hesitation was everything. Serafa Voss stood alone in her office one night, staring at an old photograph she had hidden for decades. She whispered, "You were right." Below, in the undercrown, Elias walked through streets that felt different now. Not safer. Not richer. But seen. People nodded at him, not as a hero, but as proof. That someone ordinary could matter. That humanity didn't need permission to shape the future. Weeks later, Kylera went into labor. Not in a tower. Not in a luxury medical wing. But in a shared facility staffed by human and Aurelian doctors working side by side. Elias held her hand as pain surged through her body. "You okay?" he whispered. Kylera laughed through the pain. "I'm creating a diplomatic incident." Hours later, the room filled with a sound no translator could improve. A cry. The child's skin shimmered softly, warm human tones threaded with faint Aurelian light. Their heartbeat was strong. Steady. Perfectly impossible. Elias stared, eyes burning. "Hey," he whispered. "You made it." Kylera rested her head back, exhausted and smiling. "So did we." The announcement that followed was simple. No grand speeches. No empire-branded slogans. Just truth. A human Aurelian child has been born. They are healthy. They are wanted. They are free. The galaxy reacted. Some with fear. Some with hope. But none with disbelief. Because by then, everyone understood the lesson. Humans had never needed superior technology or vast fleets to change history. They needed only one thing. To be underestimated. As Kylera watched Elias cradle their child, she understood something profound. The galaxy had believed humanity was fragile. What it had missed was that humans bend without breaking. They adapt without asking. And when the universe tells them something is impossible, they build a future anyway.